Good morning, everyone. I see we have some people still logging on, so we're going to give it another minute and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today's Groundwork Ohio Early Childhood Leadership Fellowship graduation. I tried to play a really clever song, and for some reason my computer wasn't working. But I hope you all had a wonderful morning waking up today and getting on to this really important graduation for our 2021 cohort. A few housekeeping rules before we get started. So unless you are presenting, please keep your video and audio turned off throughout the group presentations. Unless you're a fellow, or current fellow, you're more than welcome to keep your video on, but please, everyone else, make sure that you keep your video and audio turned off if you are not part of the presentations today. So there will be a chance for questions and answers and feedback after each group presentation. But feel free to use the chat box feature to applaud everyone and really encourage the groups as they present. You will receive a follow-up email probably Monday morning to make sure that's at the top of your inbox with all the resources, the presentation, and everything else that you need to know after this graduation today. This meeting also is being recorded, so I will be sending along a recording link. We are going to be live tweeting today's fellowship as well. So follow us at Groundwork Ohio on Twitter if you would like to see all the Twitter action, retweet, etc. And then lastly, just have fun celebrating with us. Our fellows have worked really hard over the past year, and I hope that you all will join us in congratulating them and celebrate with us as we move forward. So hi, everyone. My name is Julia Japles. I am a policy associate at Groundwork Ohio. I have been a part of the fellowship team, leading these fellows forward throughout the year and our last year's cohort as well. And I will hand it over to Kelsey so she can introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelsey Hopkins. I'm also a policy associate at Groundwork Ohio, and I have enjoyed kind of shadowing Julia this past year on the fellowship, and I want to just congratulate all of you, all of the fellows, for your great work this past year.
So just going over today's agenda. So we obviously just did a welcome, but we will hear remarks from Lynn Gutierrez here at Groundwork Ohio. We will go through group projects and what that process looked like. We will hear from our fellowship groups on the projects they've been working on for the past year. We will also hear remarks from Senator Sherrod Brown and Congressman Gonzalez, and we'll do a closing graduation ceremony. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Lynn Gutierrez at Groundwork Ohio so she can say a few words to you all.
Thanks, Julia, and good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn Gutierrez. I'm the Assistant Director here at Groundwork Ohio, and it's really my pleasure this morning on this early morning, coffee in hand. I know you all have your families or the children you take care of likely in the background too. But I just want to say on behalf of the Groundwork leadership team and certainly our diverse network across the state, Congratulations. I really enjoyed learning from Julie and Kelsey about each of you, your work, your personalities, the interesting point of view that you bring to the extended Groundwork team, which we certainly count you a part of. I first, want to thank you for the work you do for young children and families. You are our everyday heroes. You hold one of the most important roles in raising Ohio children. You're professionals, you're experts, you're teachers, caregivers, clinicians, healers, and really extended family for our youngest children and families. It's your work and the experience of families that really determines what our professional advocacy looks like day in and day out. So not only do you inform our work, but you really inspire it. Your leadership in the field is what inspires us to keep fighting for increased investments and access to high quality early childhood experiences. I can tell you this past week, the last week that the legislature was in session, was a really challenging one for us, and it is drawing upon your all's energy and knowing that meanwhile you are out in the field working with children and families and have dedicated your lives to this work that really keeps us going and inspires us to keep fighting even when it's incredibly challenging. Over the past year and 2 years now, really, as you all are the second cohort, you really can't even begin to imagine how the leadership of you as fellows has transformed our organization. So please just let me share a little bit. When we talk to policymakers, they expect to hear from people like me day in and day out. That's our full-time job. They expect to hear from Julia and Kelsey and our lobbyists and others, but the voices that have always moved them and will continue to do so, those voices that are the change makers, is those of you out in the field, and certainly the family voices, the voices of those families that you serve. So I just want to thank you for showing up on top of your long days and nights, your full-time plus work schedule, to strengthen your own voice and invest in yourself and your leadership to elevate your story and the stories of the families that you serve. I can tell you it has been worth it, and it will continue to be. So we have certainly had both gains and setbacks over the past several years in the Ohio early childhood policy space. I can tell you that we would not be where we're at today without voices of folks in the field like you, bringing expertise and really lending your leadership to the policy space. Please know that as our organization grows and as this fellowship network grows, it will continue to be that much more important as you've been learning, certainly the state policy landscape, but also the federal policy landscape. We're at, I think, a really critical moment in our nation's history concerning early childhood education and the investments we make in young children and their families. So I'm just so pleased to know that we have a generation of early childhood leaders that's going to help us really change the trajectory of kids' lives in this state and nation for really the long term. So I know I've said we need your voice now more than ever. I think you've heard the words now more than ever during the pandemic more times than you can count. It continues to be true, and I know we've asked a lot of you, and many of you went above and beyond, including testifying during the budget process for the state earlier this year and really testing your advocacy muscle in some different ways. And I just want to thank you because I know there is some collective fatigue that all of us are feeling. And so I thank you again for that. I just want to celebrate with you. I'm excited to stop talking and sit back and listen to you and the projects that you all have been working on, and really see what makes you all tick and what makes you what's been making you get excited and thinking and problem solving in a way that is just new and bringing new life to the work that we do. So again, congratulations on your graduation here today. No, this is just the beginning. Of course, any graduation is just the beginning. We take our partnership and relationships really seriously. In fact, our whole theory of change is based on relationships. We can't do what we do without them. And so we look forward to continuing to advance our mission with you. So once again, congratulations, but I welcome you to the alumni network of the Early Childhood Leadership Fellowship and to the greater really invested stakeholder network that Groundwork Ohio is connected with. Again, thank you, and please just remember how important your voice is. I'm happy to be a resource to you ongoing, and so is our team. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Lynn, for providing those really awesome remarks. And just a little bit of background for those who are not familiar with this fellowship, so you know what we're walking into today. So at the beginning of this year, we did convene the second annual cohort of fellows. And throughout this process, we've worked on a lot of things together. So we did some targeted leadership and advocacy training. We've done a lot of equity work as well, where not only did we do training, but we did some small group problem solving and heard from experts as we continued to implement these projects and plan for these projects. In addition to that, we were able to invite some legislators to the table where we were able to hear about how they got involved in the process, how to get involved as well, because many of the fellows on here, I encourage many of them to consider running for office someday. You all are just so brilliant and you all are so dedicated to the field. And I just think that you are incredible. And I hope that you found those talks to be inspiring, or at least engage with your legislators on a regular basis. Many of the fellows have also met with their legislators, built relationships with their legislators. We've had tons of testimony, blog posts. We learned how the legislative process worked really in depth, and we heard about the child care system, or the early childhood system overall, and we're able to glean some learnings from that too. So in addition to all these great work and training opportunities that this fellowship has provided, we also had a component to this entire fellowship where each fellow was put into a small group based on topics that they care about, and they were charged with issue spotting in the state. What are some of the common issues around this theme, and what are some advocacy solutions to it? So you will hear today from each of the small groups and where they started and where they landed. You see on the screen, this is the order that we're going to be going in today. And I asked, I believe the first one, infant and maternal health group, you wanted me to share my screen and walk through it. Is that correct? Just real quick before I get started.
Yes, that'll be great, Julia.
Yes. Okay, cool. So we'll start with the infant and maternal health group, and then I believe everyone else will share their screens. But I do want to note today that we are having a little difficult of weather here in many parts of Ohio. So many of the fellows have indicated that some of their power has gone off, and some are in the office today because of it. So I just ask for a little bit of patience as the wind seems to just be picking up, and I'm sure someone's going to lose connection. So we will adjust as needed, but I'm really excited for you all to hear from the fellows, their group projects, and, ask questions, put feedback in the chat box. They'll tell you how to plug in with their work and, where they're going from here. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to the infant and maternal health group where you all will be able to present, and then we'll go in order based on the project schedule I have up here and on the agenda I previously set. All right, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Margaret Osborne, and I am the Director for the Family and Children First Council in Ottawa County.
And I'm Amber Sullivan. I'm an early intervention service coordinator in Cuyahoga County.
Hi, I'm Jessica Parker. I'm the early childhood program manager for the city of Lakewood.
Greetings, I'm Angela Kirkland Dangerfield. I am a child care provider in Hamilton County.
And I'm Carla Adams. I'm the regional director for the Head Start and Early Head Start programs at the Child Development Council of Franklin County.
The Infant and Maternal Health Group was tasked to investigate the supports new moms and their babies needed in the first few weeks after birth. And our main purpose to raise awareness related to support for families with newborns. To complete this task, we developed a survey that provided us data on the variety of social detriments of health, for example, sleep, adequate support, and family leave. The survey was open to any family in Ohio that either a mom was pregnant or had a baby within the last 12 months. Next slide. Of the 41 surveys we completed, 17.1% were still pregnant. Almost 27% had a baby under the age of 4 months, and 41.5% had a baby between the ages of 6 to 12 months. And only 75% had private insurance. Out of the data we analyzed, a couple things stood out regarding support to families. When asked if families chose to utilize a doula in the birthing process or plan to use one during giving birth, only 5 out of 41 stated that they would utilize or utilized a doula. 5 of the 41 shared that they did not have an adequate support system. Other alarming facts that we learned is that only 17% were aware of the Family Medical Leave Act. 63% of mothers were going to return to the workforce, but only 41.5% were not going to use FMLA. They voiced to us that we need humane family leave policies, as 3 months for mom and nothing for dad was cruel, and that the need for paid leave to allow time to bond with the baby and alleviate stress during the crucial period during a newborn's life.
All right, so where did the families learn about pregnancy, childbirth, development, and other resources? So 32 of our families said that they were able to attend online or in-person birthing classes, which we felt was very encouraging. They also cited to us that they would reach out to medical professionals, friends, and social media as some of their top sources of information on these topics. And what would families change about their newborn experience? So we did get some information, some open-ended questions related to doula services that we really wanted to focus in on. One mother said that she would have accepted more help. Another mother said she would have utilized more postpartum doula service. And another mom said she would utilize a doula or advocate for birth, as she felt very uneducated about the decisions that were being made. All right, so our survey really alerted us to 2 things. And the first one was that we really felt that there was a lack of knowledge of the Family Medical Leave Act amongst our families. And we also noted that there was a lack of knowledge and use of doulas across the state of Ohio. Angela?
Thank you. So what is a doula? A doula is a non-medical birth professional trained to support moms, partners, and families throughout their pregnancy, for birth and postpartum. Doulas provide emotional and educational support, physical support, and doulas advocate for women so that they know. Doulas advocate for women to know, have, and exercise their right to make informed decisions about their care. We do not speak on mothers' behalf, but offer backup support and confidence for mothers to speak. And that was from from doulas that my two daughters had used from me and She Doula Services. The type of doulas that exist are both doulas, birth doulas. They provide assistance to other women before and during labor and childbirth. Postpartum doulas provide assistance to new parents after the baby is born. And antepartum doulas provide assistance to women who are having high risk or difficult pregnancies. And we also provided 2 articles from parents.com on doulas. Thank you. Doulas make a difference because they lower the rates of C-sections. You have lower epidurals, fewer episiotomies, higher rates of spontaneous labor, higher Asper scores, all of which can reduce the infant and maternal mortality rates.
So right now in Ohio, generally doulas are hired by parents and it's a private pay thing. So it costs around $500 to start and usually more about $800 to $1,000. Insurance companies generally do not cover doula care. A mom can use, if she has a HSA or FSA, you can use those accounts to pay for doula services. But this leaves a lot of women without doula care. So depending on where a mother lives, if she meets certain criteria, she might be able to use an organization such as in Cleveland, we have Birthing Beautiful Communities, which provides support to pregnant women that are at high risk for infant mortality. But those women must live in certain neighborhoods, meet certain race and income guidelines. There's still a lot of women out there who aren't aware of doulas or don't think that they can afford one. Next slide. So there happens to be right now Ohio House Bill 142, which is for Medicaid coverage of doula services. It was sponsored by Representatives Crawley and Brinkman, and it establishes a 4-year pilot program for the provision of doulas in the Ohio Medicaid program. So this pilot program will establish a licensing protocol that will be under the state nursing board. Right now, there's private organizations that certify women and train them to be doulas, but there's no government entity giving licenses to doulas. This is being really well received, and there's been 3 hearings now, and everyone is there as a proponent. They contend that the cost to implement will ultimately save the state money because they're going to reduce cesarean births and other high-risk costs and save women's lives. In Ohio, more than half of our births are to Medicaid recipients. So we're not only going to get Medicaid care to these women that need it, or get doula care to these women who need it, but we're going to, in general, raise awareness of doulas, and hopefully it will lead to increased use.
So what we took on to help our advocacy efforts was to create a social media toolkit to help really push forward our support in the House Bill 142 regarding doula services, as well as the Senate Bill 190, which is to designate 1 week in March as Ohio Doula Week to really celebrate the doulas who are doing the work. So inside of the social media toolkit, we have some samples of an email or a blog post which allows people to kind of have the structure if they've never done it before and to get them on the right path with a little information, and then to say, share your story. We also wanted to add how individuals, if they don't know who their legislators are, the links to search. So they would have the contact information of both their Ohio House and Ohio Senate representatives based on their location. Also in the toolkit, we have some sample social media posts. And this is just quick simple facts that people could copy and paste into any of their social media platforms, as well as some hashtags so we can follow what's going on. So we have hashtag doula did you know, hashtag doula facts, and hashtag OH doulas. So some of the really neat facts that I found quite interesting. Studies have demonstrated that having a doula as a member of the birthing team has reduced the length of labor by 25%, decreased the cesarean rate by 50%, and the request for epidurals by 60%. Also, the cost analysis has found that doula care can reduce overall spending by avoiding unnecessary medical procedures and the potential complications and chronic problems that may result, reducing the neonatal ICU admissions and fostering healthy practices such as breastfeeding. The last piece to our social media toolkit is a social media image that people can share all over the place, showing our support to Ohio doulas. An extra piece, Jessica talked about where the bills are. We wanted to make sure people who were interested were able to go and see where exactly the bills are in the process. So we also put the links to those, each bill. And we wanted to end with this quote that we found that we thought was really powerful. The birth team is grounded in the idea that women would be the center of their care team with social support all around her. And that's from New Beginnings Doula Training.
Thank you all for sharing your group presentation. I know that I'm about to put in the chat box here in a minute the toolkit that you all mentioned. And I also ask that each of you put in your contact information into the chat box in case anyone wants to engage with you outside of today's graduation. But does anyone have any questions, feedback, comments, anything of that nature that you would like to share with this group? I see one and I see two in the chat. So Michael says, what does the doula community feel about the state putting guidelines on becoming a doula with the bill? And then is the toolbox accessible for us to use? Yes, Brittany, I will be putting that in the chat box here in a second.
I'll say that, Michael, I work weekly with a birth and postpartum doula who facilitates my new mom's support group. And I think that the general consensus is that it's going to bring such awareness to doulas, and it's going to create jobs. I mean, that's another part of this, is that it's a generally, a woman-centered job. It's and that by the very fact that more people will engage with doulas if this passes, that it's a good thing around.
All right. And make sure that you all read the comments that you're receiving in the chat box as well. And like I said, I'm about to click upload on the toolkit, so you all have a copy of it, but I will be sending in a follow-up email all of these resources as well. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
now we're on to the race and rural equity group. And I did turn on screen sharing.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brittany Pope, and I am from Cleveland, Ohio. I work with an organization called Ohio Guidestone out of their Institute for Family and Community Impact. And before we, completely dive in on the wrong slide. Before we dive in, definitely want my team members to give a round robin introduction, and then we'll share with you a little bit about our project.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Misty Cole, and I am the Early Childhood Mental Health Training Coordinator for Hopewell Health Services in Athens, Ohio, and one of the master trainers under the Ohio Whole Child Matters grant. Michael?
So I'm Michael Ingram from Bedford Heights, Ohio, Bedford Heights Daycare. I have lots of hats, and I feel like my hat with this group is I'm Charlie, and these are my angels. So
Hi, I am Marian Wright. I am a service coordinator for Bright Beginnings Early Intervention in Cuyahoga County.
And that is our team. And our focus was on race and rural equity. And as we started out, we said to ourselves, well, we need to define these terms because they're not used in the same way. And sometimes they're not fully understood. And then considering Ohio, we said, well, we really need to break this down. So what we did really quickly was decide first things first, let's frame what our focus and our meaning of race and rural equity means. So we decided to look at Ohio spaces a little closer, knowing that we have a really, really unique population set up in Ohio. A researcher like me, it is my dream space because we have urban spaces, suburban spaces, rural spaces, spaces that fit in between rural and suburban and urban. And then we have several Appalachian counties in Ohio. So taking a quick look at the map, because sometimes visually we can get a quicker eye, our urban spaces are well spread out throughout the state. So many of you who are familiar with Ohio, you kind of know that it's like a 4 or 5 hot spot around the state. Up around Toledo, which is Lucas County. Then you have the greater Cleveland, Akron areas, Youngstown, you have Central Ohio, which is Columbus, so Delaware, but mostly Franklin County. Then you have Dayton, and then you have the Cincinnati areas. And as far as rural and Appalachian counties go, there's an overlap of the definition of Appalachia. And so without diving deep into that, because that has a whole national definition, but looking particularly for Ohio, here you see what we define as our rural counties, and then overlap of the kind of southeast tip coming all the way up to the eastern border of Ohio, what we define as Appalachia. And in case you're wondering to yourself, what does Appalachia mean? I would invite you to take a pause and think to yourself, what comes to mind? What words, what imagery comes to mind? And a lot of times individuals may think, maybe impoverished folks, maybe white people, but that's not it to Appalachia. Appalachia is such a robust and a very, very historically seated set of regions throughout the United States, but particularly in Ohio, it definitely is a spot that does have a good amount of diversity when it comes to racial heritage background, because at a time, it was a hotspot for economic industries such as coal mining and different things like that. So really similar to other spaces in Ohio, the Midwest industries, but it experienced a lot of movement in the state as individuals are looking for income, looking for different opportunities. And that includes white people throughout the United States, definitely includes Black people, for example, with the Great Migration, and of course, Native and Indigenous populations, which Ohio was a fully occupied state before it was settled. So we thought it was really important that we do not forget Appalachia, that we don't lump it in just like, oh yes, another rural space, because they have a very, very specific need. And we actually pulled a quote that really was close to our heart from the Groundwork equity report that says, children share similar heartbreaking outcomes in both urban and rural parts of the state. Appalachian children experience unique barriers that must be understood. Failing to acknowledge these different experiences serves none of them. So when you're thinking about equity, it is so important to have an idea of who you're looking at, what you're looking at, why, and what definitions or what frameworks are you going to work in. And thinking about that, the next step was, okay, how are we going to define and outline racial and rural equity? So again, using Groundwork resources, we really felt that this picture could be helpful for people to understand, well, what exactly is equity? And oftentimes when it comes to things like health equity, it is best understood as the opposite: inequities, injustices. So if you look at these pictures here, you see different houses, and this top picture where the line kind of flows evenly across, you see what we would call as equality. Well, equality doesn't quite get it because different people are at different starting points. Some are way at the bottom of this hill and some are at the top. No judgment cast, but when you take and adopt an equity perspective, you look and you say, okay, what does everyone need? Easy example, I'm 5'10". I don't need a booster to get to the top of my shelf, but my daughter, who's only 4 feet, She does, right? And that's a really, really easy, simple, super simplified way to think about it. But when we think about meeting individuals' needs, especially children's needs, when we admit to ourselves that we feel and we believe and agree that every child deserves the best outcomes, then it shouldn't give us a struggle at looking at equity and saying, we're going to search out different ways to serve different groups of people who have different experiences and different outcomes in life. So that led us to our next thing. We actually probably kept saying this over and over and over, and then we realized, like, wait, this is not just a phrase, this is not just a term, race and place. When we were thinking about racial and rural equity, what does that mean to us? And it really meant what kind of treatments, what kind of experiences, outcomes, institutionally, systemically, historically, culturally, and now do you experience at the different intersections of one's race and place? And so with that, we thought about, okay, what ideas come to mind that we can focus on? And of course, we had a barrage of ideas. Definitely thought about access to early, access to early care and education. What were the COVID-19 implications, which I'm sure everyone was definitely living through at the same time. What about funding? Was there access issues to funding or equity issues? And then the workforce. And so no matter what we were thinking about, everything really circled around race and place. And that helped us arrive at our idea to examine the quality of early care and education spaces around race and place. So accessibility to Black, Indigenous, and other peoples of color, people in rural spaces and people in Appalachia, we're not sure if there is equitable access to quality programs or what quality might be defined within those communities and groups. And so we thought about, well, what are the moderators of quality? And then different things that we thought of, that we saw, that we experienced, and that we read and researched had to do with representation and inclusion, training and preparation of the workforce, as well as evaluation and accountability. And so that led us to this slide and talking about our process, and I'll pass that to our Charlie, Michael, to dive into with you all.
All right, thanks, Britt. So our process was that we wanted to learn more about this in like the early care and education piece with our families. So we wanted to survey our families. So I, at my school, I was able to survey my families, and we were able to see what the knowledge was around some of the topics that were super important to us and that we determined to be important in this whole process, in this fellowship. And seeing if really diversity made a rural and racial diversity made an impact on people's decisions for early care and education, or if that was just something secondary to some of the other things that were important to them when picking a school to bring their children to. So next slide for me, Britt. And so the questions that we had that I asked my parents, I was able to poll my parents at my school. And so we had 20 parents that I looked at that I got to speak to and asked these 3 questions here on the screen. 5 that I polled were less than 1 year at my center. So they were up to 1 year that they'd been in my center. The second group was 10. That was the largest amount of parents that we polled, and that was 1+ years at my center. And then we polled 5 parents that were 3+ years longevity at my center. And so these are the questions on the screen. When looking for a center, does the diversity of the center make an impact on your choice? When looking for a center, does the staff understanding of cultural competency play into your choice? And if you knew that staff was trained in cultural competency, would that play a role in your decision? So our results are in the next slide. So the first 2 questions, we had 100% that said no, okay? That really didn't play into their decision making. But then you could see our last question, we had 85%. So majority of the parents said that if they did know about this and they were able to understand it, then that would make a big impact. And a lot of things that I heard when talking to my parents was this is important to me, but what is more important to me sometimes is finding a space that is on my bus route, that is close to my family home, or that I've had previous children before. But an overwhelming response was that they felt that high quality centers should have that understanding, and they just maybe assume that if you are a high rated center that you do have that. And so that's where we came with like some additional findings, that if it was so important to our families, and they thought that maybe high quality centers, or centers that appear to be having a lot of understanding of early care and education, we would think that it would be important to the state, that this would be a part of what it surrounds a high quality center. And so some of our other options and some of our other thoughts around that will come later. But the important part was that parents really just thought that this was part of what the landscape of a center that was highly rated in the state, or has been in early care and education space for a long time. So I'll pass it off now to my next friend.
Thank you, Michael. So now we are going to talk about our proposal part. So we know that this is an important topic for parents, and that they expect quality centers to have staff trained in race and rural equity. So our proposal is to update the current Step Up to Quality training requirements, specifically adding in trainings for race and rural equity. We would like 50% of the classroom staff and all administrative staff to have at minimum 10% of the current hours needed for Step Up to Quality Certification B in race and rural equity. So this is just where our information came from for the next slide. And then currently, for example, it's 20 to 30 hours for the different certifications. So for example, a 4-star program would need 2.5 hours dedicated to race and rural equity, and a 5-star program would need 3 hours dedicated to race and rural equity. So currently, there are no requirements in early childhood education staff to complete trainings in race and rural equity. But there are trainings in OPRA, the Ohio Professional Register, available to all staff in the state. The trainings are optional though. If you want to go seek them out, you can, but they are not mandated. So there are no means to ensure centers are addressing professional development for equity in race and diversity. So these are just some examples that we have currently in OPRA. We have cultural awareness in early childhood education, anti-racist classrooms, why race matters in infant mental health outcomes, approaches to health equity in early education, and leveling the field, advancing equity in early childhood education. All of them are readily available and accessible through OPRA in all areas of the state. So we know that these trainings are readily available to us, but we want to make sure that the professional development mandates that Step Up to Quality centers are training their staff in these areas. So now Misty is going to take our next steps. Thank you.
Thanks, Marian. So we know that race and equity and diversity and representation matters for all of Ohio's children. And in the last several years, it's certainly been brought to the forefront, some of the inequity that individuals have faced around our nation, and it's hit close to home and it's hit nationwide. And so we really felt as a group that it was time for those that are involved in the early education and care fields to take a stand to ensure that those working with our youngest citizens are actively working towards advancing that equity. So suggesting professional development in these areas really doesn't suffice when we know how important it is. And so this quote from the NAEYC, we really felt kind of summarized our group's mission and goals, which is all children have the right to equitable learning opportunities that help them achieve their full potential as engaged learners and valued members of society. Thus, all early childhood educators have a professional obligation to advance equity. They can do this best when they are effectively supported by the early learning settings in which they work, and when they and their wider communities embrace diversity and full inclusion as strengths, uphold fundamental principles of fairness and justice, and work to eliminate structural inequities that limit this equitable learning opportunities. So when we got started looking at the process, we were able to meet with Tracy Chestnut, who's the Bureau Chief Office of Family Assistance at ODJFS, and Allison Carver in Human Services Development, also at ODJFS. And we met on May 27th to better understand the ODJFS process for rules in Step Up to Quality. And so at that meeting, we learned a great deal about the process of new rules, how rules are amended, how the process happens every 5 years for evaluating those current rules and making sure that those rules are in fact exactly where they need to be based on the voices of individuals who are in the field. So the first thing that happens is DJFS identifies a need to draft a new rule or examine the existing rules, and that happens every 5 years. And then the rules are put through a clearance process in order to garner public comment, to get voices heard of people who are in the field. Next, a business impact analysis is conducted, and that also gives individuals the opportunity to comment, and then the comments are reviewed by the governor's office. So the rules are put through a public hearing process and then presented to Joint Committee for Agency Rule Review. And then finally, once the approval process goes and the voices have been heard, those rules are effective and published in Ohio's administrative code. So there are a lot of opportunities. This is what we learned, right? There's this 5-year process, but we learned that there are all these opportunities that you can participate in when it comes to making of these rules that actually guide the practices that we're using with children. So you can serve on an advisory committee at the state. You can attend meetings with associations and advocacy groups. You can review and comment on those draft rules. We've got some links here. Also, comment on that business impact analysis. We can review proposed rules and notice for public hearings, attend those public hearings, and do what many of us have done throughout this process, attend and provide oral testimony or written testimony. And we can also attend those Joint Commission meetings. So the process is in place, and so we had to look at additional considerations and next steps, and that includes proposing a rule change that mandates professional development that includes race, place, rural equity, and or cultural humility. We also talked about all of the credentials that are available in the state of Ohio are amazing, and we really lead the nation on many of those. And what about taking the next step of looking at a credential that is actually ensuring that professionals are culturally aware and that there is equitable early learning within their sites? We're working on taking part in the rules change process to ensure that early learning professionals are working towards goals of race and rural equity, and providing written and oral testimony at upcoming public hearings for that rule creation, change, and amendment. So, though we have not been able to ensure that mandate of race and rural equity professional development for Ohio's early learning communities, that doesn't mean that the work stops. This really was the beginning. And I appreciated those opening remarks because this is our graduation, but this has been the foundation for the work that we are planning to do in the future. We know that Ohio's children deserve an opportunity to learn in settings where there's an understanding of the challenges of race and place. Our work has to continue to make positive changes that utilize the information on the rules change process, and we're going to utilize that moving forward. And we are really appreciative to Groundworks and our leadership in the fellowship, and to those who met with us and supported us and also believe in that vision. I think in closing, we know how vital equity is for our children's futures, and as such, it shouldn't be optional. Race and place matters for Ohio children, and it matters for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you all for that wonderful presentation. Definitely check out the chat box. I know Michael's been responding super on top of it. But make sure that you read the wonderful comments in the chat box. Does anyone have any questions or additional feedback you would like to provide this group?
I have a question. Hi, this is Devin. I was wondering, How did you all react when you found out that diversity training wasn't required by Okra?
Me, for one, I was not surprised. So a lot of my experiences actually helped inform the group. Like I was just telling them different stories and they really uplifted them. So I was not surprised, but I was disappointed. I think a lot of times we have many people who assume we live in a quote post-racial society. And unfortunately, we have a good majority of individuals who are what they would like to call colorblind and don't realize that's actually adverse racism. And when we think about how race and racism has been embedded into institutions and structures, well, if you have a good majority of people think we're post-racial and colorblind, and that is a response to a structural and institutionalized something of America, it was no surprise that that was carried forward also in our childcare systems. But definitely frustrated because we know that race-related stress and other forms of inequity and oppression, those have some of the greatest damage in early childhood. So not surprised, but definitely frustrated and disappointed.
I also saw that more visible during the pandemic when I was able to speak to people across the state. You know, Cuyahoga County is maybe a little bit more of a microcosm of maybe diversity, but when I was speaking to other providers across the state, and there was just not a lack of understanding, not maybe from their, nothing against them, but just not being able to understand that. As well as I think the super important thing to us was some of the trainings that are in Okra don't represent the populations that they're speaking about. And so that was super important for us to have trainers that also represent what they're speaking about, more so than just people who look like me.
Thank you for indulging that question and, just being super upfront and honest and having these conversations that we all need to hear and bringing this to everyone's attention as well. I can see in the chat box, I feel like you guys will have a lot of people who would want to be engaged in this. So I invite you and ask you to put your information in the chat box, this group, so that people can get a hold of you. But like I said, I'll follow up with the group presentations and contact information so that if they don't capture it here today, they can find a way to get a hold of you. All right, so let's move on to the next group. I know we're running a little bit behind, so we'll go ahead and get started with the infant and early childhood mental health team.
This look okay? Are we good?
That looks great. That looks great, Megan. That looks great. I'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Devin Bates, and I am the Assistant Child Care Administrator and Lead Pre-K Teacher at the fabulous East End Neighborhood House in the great city of Cleveland, Ohio. I had the extreme opportunity and privilege with working with all of these ladies who were definitely passionate, but well involved and very informative when it came to all the different varieties and passions when it comes to mental health and infant and early childhood. We really didn't understand. I mean, at least I really didn't understand the impact of how important it is for mental health to be included for these babies, for our babies, because they're experiencing all the mental and environmental stress that we're facing as adults, but also between 0 to 5. Now that's so important to cover. So we can go ahead and move on to the next slide. So we wanted to really thank Groundwork Ohio for sending out this report back in October. This definitely was a very large grain of reference for us, dealing with how to implement certain policies, what policies were important, to take a very serious matter of what was going on in the mental health section of childcare and early childhood education. I first would like to pass it over to Ms. Jenny Chu, who will elaborate about raising awareness in mental health and early childhood education.
Thanks, Devin. My name is Jenny Chu, and I work at the TIP program at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. To help our children, one of the first things we need to do as advocates is raise awareness of infant mental health and the needs in our communities. Children demonstrate mental health concerns differently than adults. Normal childhood behaviors such as bedwetting, sleeping or eating problems, crying and tantrums can be symptoms of mental health concerns, so it's critical to be aware of what to look for. 90% of the brain development occurs between birth and age 5. Brain scans of children who've experienced trauma are significantly different than those who without similar experiences. Physical changes to the hippocampus, prefrontal cortex, and amygdala lead to anxiety, depression, reduced attention control, difficulty experiencing joy, and trouble understanding social situations. Everybody experiences stress. In general, stress is not bad. Our stress response activates and returns to baseline, but prolonged or toxic stress causes long-term physical and mental health outcomes. By incorporating surveys to assess for ACEs and increasing knowledge among community partners, we can identify high-risk children and provide interventions sooner so that we can hopefully change the long-term outcome for children in our communities. And now Hannah will talk more about appropriately diagnosing and treating these special kids.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me. My name's Hannah Bowler. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor based out of Cincinnati. So like Jenny said, I'm going to talk about supporting appropriate diagnosis. So many of the current diagnoses in the DSM have age limitations that disqualify young children from meeting the criteria. So that obviously makes it really hard to kind of figure out exactly what is going on with young children. And like Jenny said, sometimes we don't really see these externalizing behaviors as a mental health concern. Furthermore, clinicians are not given proper training for infant and early childhood populations to access to quality mental health care is limited. The 0 to 3 Foundation has created a diagnostic criteria for ages 0 to 5 that would encompass environmental factors as well as the externalizing behaviors that many of us see. And while there has been some concern about labeling younger children, especially younger children in minority populations with a mental health diagnosis, it is really, really important to provide a timely diagnosis and subsequent treatment so we can improve the outcomes. So there is kind of the widespread incorrect idea that children are more resilient in the things that happen to them, the toxic stress that they experience at a young age. They're more easily able to overcome, but that's not the case. And so it's really important to have appropriate services available to help them. There are several empirically studied research-based modalities that are highly effective with treating younger children, but they are just not widely available, especially in rural areas or smaller cities. An appropriate diagnosis would demonstrate the need for these services to be more available in communities across the state. Ideally, identifying a higher need will allow us to grow our workforce, which Linda is going to talk about now.
Thanks, Hannah. I am Linda Shetler, and I am the director of a early Head Start program in Cleveland, Ohio. I work for Catholic Charities, and my section is focusing on the need to grow the workforce to work with children who present with mental health issues. So in order to develop a highly educated and qualified workforce, we first need to look at the professionals in the workforce that interface with infants, children, and their families. So you can see on this slide some of the professions. So imagine having doctors, nurses, judges, lawyers, caseworkers, in-home providers, early childhood educators, and therapists knowledgeable on the warning signs of PTSD in young children, or what depression might look like in a toddler. And then imagine the impact if these same professionals had a qualified community of mental health specialists to refer the children and families to for treatment. So growing a qualified workforce is critical if we hope to have impact on the lives of young children. Ohio lacks qualified mental health therapists to work with this very young population, and there are things that can be done now to impact the change. First, we need to address the disparity in our state and how the resources are allocated. A child who lives in a rural area should have the same access to mental health services as a child that lives in an urban area where there tends to be more services available. Next, we need to work with colleges and universities around developing infant early childhood mental health tracks, and we need more training on the DC 0 to 5. We need to offer more training for the evidence-based treatments that are proven successful with this population. And lastly, we need to have reimbursement rates that will support higher salaries to attract people to this field. We are living in unprecedented times with the pandemic, and we know that our children have been exposed to more trauma and violence. So the time for change really is now. And I'm going to hand it over to Megan to hear more about what you can do to help educate our policymakers about the need for more mental health funding for this age group.
Thanks, Linda. I'm Megan Floridori. I'm a pediatric nurse scientist in Cleveland. With these things in mind, our group put together an advocacy sheet to help inform legislators about this issue and what future legislation is needed. We started with a quick fact, a call to action, and the severity of the problem in Ohio. Though doing right by kids and families is its own reward, there's also a substantial cost savings when we properly care for children's mental health concerns. In the pink bar, we included those 3 action items that we talked about today. And at the bottom, we've invited the reader to find out more with a QR code linking to the recent Groundwork report. And now we're in the process of getting this sheet into the hands and inboxes of policymakers and key stakeholders. We're working on printing these sheets for Linda and her colleagues so they can take paper copies to legislators and staffers in Washington for their upcoming Head Start Day of Advocacy in January. And we hope you'll join us in sharing this with your legislators too. We'll add the sheet into the chat, and thanks for your help in spreading it and advocacy on this issue far and wide. It's really an incredible moment for mental health for all of us, but especially for babies and young children. Mental health is on our national radar, and after the last year and a half and what we're still tackling, it's as important as ever to bring this issue to state and national leaders. In the Ohio State House, there's a bill to establish a commission on ACEs and a concurrent resolution to declare a state of emergency on childhood trauma. Nationally, Senators Bennett and Cornyn are putting together mental health and behavioral health care reform, and we must continue to advocate for what our kids need in support and care.
And with gratitude and our sincerest thanks, we'd like to give a big shout out to Dr. Sherry Killen-Stewart from the Build Initiative, Ms. Kelsey Hopkins and Julia Jacobs, and the Groundwork Ohio team for always being so supportive and always, giving us the information to put us in the right direction to advocate for these children, for our children. And also a big thanks to Megan Schmelzer from 0 to 3. And on behalf of the Early Childhood Mental Health and Infant and Mental Health Group, we just want to say thank you all. And we hope that this information is enough to motivate you to keep advocating and pushing forward to our legislators on how important it is for us to take care of our children and their mental health. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I wanted to open it up in case anyone had any questions or feedback that you wanted to provide the group. I did post in the chat box the social media or the one pager, sorry. So I posted the toolkit in there that you'll be able to access now, and of course I'll send it later as well. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free to come off chat or put it in the chat box. And I see that you're getting a lot of great feedback as well. This is such an incredible issue to focus on right now.
Did have a question. I wondered, as you all were doing your research into this, did you dive into at all as far as, what makes staff qualified and what, not just what credentials, but also just kind of like what their mental health status is as far as the caregivers that are providing the care to our little ones, because, we know that factors in so much. Were you guys able to look into that at all as far as, if they're like the supports that teachers and caregivers need and are available to them at all?
We didn't look into that particularly, but I will say that many of the evidence-based modalities that are used for younger children involve the caregivers. So we know that for young children, their parents need to be involved in the therapy process just as more than or as much as the child itself. So that's why it's so important for things like parent-child psychotherapy and parent-child interaction therapy to be funded and widely available, because it involves and incorporates the parent into the treatment. There's also parent-child or teacher-child interaction therapy, which I haven't seen utilized as much, but it is kind of an option for teachers to get the tools that they might need to help with their mental health, as well as interacting with the children in a way that's beneficial.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Mhm.
In my city, right now in Lakewood, a suburb of Cleveland, we are doing a training with Metro Health to be, because we're about ready to open up the Lakewood Community Center. And it's going to be the first trauma-informed community center in the state, we believe. So it's really great. We're doing this work right now. So great presentation, guys.
And also, speaking from experience, there was a study done in 2012 where the early childhood education teachers, the turnover rate is between 25 and 30%. So that is also, a contributing factor. The mental health goes into them being in a position for so long, being able to hold that position down, and also having the resources, as Hannah did say, as far as trauma-induced care and training and whatnot. So that goes into it. Most of the research that was presented during that 2012 study exclaimed that there was exhaustion and tired and frustration. And we all know as adults, if we're frustrated and we're angry, that bleeds over into the children. So yeah, just to add a little sauce to that.
It's also important to, and I'm going to just step on my soapbox here for a little bit, trauma-informed care includes providing appropriate resources for staff. Like, we can't be trauma-informed if we can't take care of ourselves. So it's important that as we talk about expanding the workforce and all of that, that's a component of trauma-informed care as well, is being able to take care of our teachers and caregivers.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all for presenting today. And like I said, this is just such an incredible issue, especially right now as we continue to go through this pandemic, and we need to be sure that our children of all ages are being protected in their mental health. So next on our list is our workforce group. So if you all want to share your screen, I have screen sharing on.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't see me either. So can you see me?
We can see you.
You can see me. Great. I had to step outside of my office because the reception is extremely bad out here. So I do apologize for that. But I don't know if my group members want to introduce themselves like everybody else did. But my name is Asia Hughes, and I am a child care consultant. I work mainly around Hamilton County and Butler County. My small company is called the Child Care People. If my group members want to introduce themselves.
I'm Brittany Jackson, Step Up to Quality Coordinator at Action for Children in Columbus, Ohio.
I'm Renee Matsunami, co-director at Childcare Choices in Miami County.
I'm Carrie Williamson. I'm Carrie Williamson, and I am the founder of Professional Innovative Early Care and Education Solutions.
Okay, I'm sorry. Was that everybody? I know we were missing one today. Just want to make sure. But like I said before, my name is Asia, and our group is presenting on the early childhood workforce recruitment and retention. I definitely have to say I was nervous about this project because of how serious the issue is here in Ohio and all over the US right now. But I do believe our group was able to grasp some solid information and hopefully be able to help others from all over to advocate for this issue. Our report content consists of 3 major parts, including what we know right now, what we've learned, and what is next. These I'm sorry, we gotta go to the next slide after that. Yeah. And these are the wonderful ladies that I've worked with throughout the fellowship. All of us were able to conduct research, surveys, and seek out some resources to help advocate for these issues. Part one, which is just a snapshot of the information that we collected on our survey through Franklin County. And as you see here on the slide, this is a report from Action for Children Taking the Toll, I think it was called. 44% of Franklin County child care centers report having a shortage in staffing. 79% of those that are also reporting to have a difficulty hiring staff. The next slide, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to my teammates.
So what did we learn through the survey? And we're going to discuss the results and our interviews. So how we rolled out the survey, and the idea behind it was to gather the data that we can use to give a snapshot of the issues facing the early childhood education workforce. It was consisted of 10 questions. We had a fair amount of respondents, about 66, and we were able to interview a few of those participants over Zoom. So what we did find, the majority of the respondents, when asked, what is your current role in a childcare setting? The majority were administrators or owners. We had very few teachers and a decent amount of teacher aides and teacher assistants, about 15 of those. So why are people leaving early childhood education? And you notice that the picture does show a level of frustration or just being tired and exhausted by the end of the workday. We'd like to provide you with a clip of one of our respondents during our interview, touching on why she thought people are leaving early childhood education.
Budgets are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. There's fewer support, fewer staff. And then, the teachers feel it, the lead teachers feel it, they don't feel as supported. And it just is this horrific trickle down. But I definitely think it definitely will impact people's decision to stay.
Okay, so notice on the second half of the slide, we'll see that 49% of the respondents said they will not be returning to the early childhood education workforce. They highlighted ideas or the reasonings behind that as insufficient pay, really the inability to support a family. And for those of us that have been out in the field, I'm sure that definitely hits home. It truly hits home with me. And also a lack of benefits. It's tough when you cannot get the medical care that you need to stay healthy and to stay strong in a stressful time. And some people are just finding that this really early childhood education really isn't their passion.
Okay, when asked what benefits they receive, paid time off, workers' comp, health insurance were among the most prevalent offered. And when looking at this, we were a bit surprised, but we have to keep in mind that majority of our respondents were from corporate centers where benefits are more likely to be offered. Trainings and staff orientation were listed as the most prevalent supports that were received among teachers. And with staff orientation, training, coaching, technical assistance, and subs being the supports that weren't offered but would be most desired among teaching staff. 62% of administrators and 50% of the teachers surveyed are not satisfied with pay and their salary, which is not surprising considering that childcare workers are among the lowest paid in this country. Um, 86% of administrators follow their established staff orientation as listed in their employee manual, and about 90% feel capable of supporting their the training and development needs of their staff. So what's next? Brittany will tell you how to use the information you gather in your childcare advocacy efforts.
So because our research was very specific to Franklin County, and even though that this is a issue that is impacting childcare all over Ohio, we kind of want to make sure that you are empowered to research and define the issue specifically in your own community. So we are going to be sharing the survey that we did with our providers so that you can do the same sort of, so that you can disseminate it in your community as well. But we want you to be able to get to know and listen to your subjects. It was very interesting to hear from their own words why people were leaving the field. There were some really passionate providers that we spoke to, and they talked about how the pandemic exacerbated the stress that they already felt. And that was one of the leading reasons for why they said they would not be in childcare in 5 years. People who previously would not have thought that they would leave the field, they're stressed. And then also present this information to those who can actually make change, to your community stakeholders. So advocacy is very important in making sure that we support the ECE workforce. So here's how you can do those things that we just suggested. In terms of surveying and getting in contact with those who are impacted, it's important to really get in touch with your local child care resource and referral agency. As you see, we were able to send out our survey to 732 programs, and that's because I work at a CCRNR. So you want to make sure that you get connected with your local CCRNR. You can go to Okra CCRNR membership page to find out who your CCRNR is, but also you can look for programs on Child Care Search Ohio. But you also want to make sure that you're going places where those people are speaking so you can hear their issues from themselves. So the OAEYC Early Childhood Educator Coalition is a great place to hear providers speak about the issues that are facing them. And then in Central Ohio, we have what is called the Central Ohio Critical Childcare Network. It meets every other Wednesday and it has a Facebook group. But also work with local stakeholders and community partners who can make a change. So the United Way, your local county jobs and family services, banks that support ECE like PNC in Huntington, your local Adam H and your local YMCA. So one of the questions we asked at the end of our survey is, at the end of our interview was, if there were a politician in this room right now, what would your suggestion be for them to support early childhood teachers and programs? And this is a response that one of our interviewees gave. View early childhood as a profession. We have put the work in, not only with children and families, but with our education. And we're always in the classroom doing the research, observing the children, or working with parents. This is something that's going to help the children in the future. And with that, we would like to give a special thank you to the lovely staff at Groundwork and to all of you from learning what we've shared in our bi-monthly meetings. And of course, to each and every one of my teammates. I do see some questions in the chat. Hold on. Do you think pay is a major issue? I think, and ladies, you can back me up, but I think pay was an issue, but for those who want to be in the field, it's more so of an issue with a lot of the other stressors that have been added. I think some of the ones that we talked to, they just want recognition and rewards in other way. It doesn't necessarily always have to be pay, but pay is a major issue.
Yeah, and if I could jump in just real fast, Brittany, during this during this experience with Groundwork Ohio, we were all able to meet with our representatives. And one of the things that I explained to Senator Jay Hottinger when he had asked me about, quality of life and whatnot during our discussion, and I had explained to him, I've been in the field 18, 19 years. I have 3 college degrees, 2 of them being masters, and I am making $33,000 a year and have absolutely no health insurance. I can't get to the doctor when I'm sick. And, and that was very concerning to him. And not to mention those of us that have student loans for doing all of those things. But it can definitely impact. And if it's not in your heart to continue to stay in the profession, but you're unable to support your family, you just do what you can to get by and stay in.
Thank you to this group for really diving into this really important issue. I'm sure many of them on this call really feel this, especially right now as this workforce crisis continues on. So this is a very important issue to bring to light. And I am so happy to see all the work that you all have done in trying to move this issue forward and put this at the forefront of everyone's attention. So next, we will go to our early literacy group, and then we'll go into our child care quality group. So our early literacy group, do you want to share your screen?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So we are the early literacy group. I'm Jessica Collins. I'm one of the child development coordinators with Knox County Head Start, and I'll let the other group members introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm Charlene Carroll. I'm the administrator at the Early Education Center at Emmanuel Christian Academy in Akron.
I'm Julia Shaheen, and I'm the literacy manager at the Stark County District Library in Stark County.
I'm Caroline King. I'm the administrator of Temple Tots Preschool in Portsmouth, Ohio.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tawana Williams, owner of Leona B and lead education consulting, K-12 and family advocate.
So we started our project really understanding how important early literacy is in all areas of education, and our group is made up of a wide range of people that work in preschool settings, primary, and library settings. So we really started to focus in on some of the areas that we saw some concerns in, and that came from educators to parents. And that is how we developed this overarching goal that we wanted to focus on, which is understanding the importance of early literacy for child development, staff education, and parent engagement in the different settings at home, school, and in the communities. So after developing this goal, we really tried to focus on who in our community already focuses on early literacy and how can we add to that, as well as how can we make it accessible and easy to follow for parents and educators, because sometimes that's what we found to be difficult. It was a lot of handouts and a lot of reading, and that's not always what works best for some of our families that we work with. So with this goal, We focused on some facts that Charlene's going to share in the next slide.
In the next slide. We're something that we needed to figure out, though, is what is early literacy. So what we focused on were the 5 practices that libraries use. Through the American Library Association, there is a program called Every Child Ready to Read. And there are 2 versions. The most updated version has 5 practices, which make the skills so much easier for parents and caregivers to understand, and it gets rid of the technical jargon. So the 5 basic practices to getting children ready for school and giving them the knowledge that they need to read and write before they're reading and writing. So the 5 practices are playing, reading, talking, writing, and singing. And we're probably all doing this in our settings with children. We just don't realize we're not being as intentional as we could be. So that that's kind of where we started with creating our toolkit.
Okay. So with that, we wanted to first focus on the importance of early literacy. And we know that the brain develops prenatally and that 90% of a child's brain is formed before the age of 5. And we also realized in our data that in Ohio, 40% of our children are not ready to read when entering kindergarten. Reading abilities at kindergarten entry are powerful indicators of later school success. Children who enter kindergarten behind are unlikely to catch up. And within that research, it also has some racial disparities also with minorities and the vocabulary that they have when they enter into school. We also realize that reading is the gateway to learning. If our children can't read, they don't stand a chance for a successful future. States must ensure every child learns how to read no later than the end of 3rd grade. With that, we thought that supporting parents and educators could lead to a solid foundation and better school success. So with that, Caroline is going to show you some of the tools that we're going to use in our toolkit.
Here are a couple examples of the videos we produced. One features writing practice where the teacher is complimenting and sharing with children why writing is so important. In the other video snippet, viewers can see a real world example of a home, including music during dinner prep.
We're making letters, writing names. We're strengthening our fingers for fine motor writing. It's a nice big H, girl.
And I are at home cooking dinner, and I found some song cards on the internet. I just copied them. I put them on my refrigerator, and while I'm cooking dinner, Ainsley's going to help me, and she's going to pick out a song, and we're going to sing together. Ainsley, what song would you like? Itsy Bitsy Spider. Parents and caregivers can help grow brain connections by using the 5 early literacy practices. This will help a child develop the foundation needed for reading. And I are at home cooking dinner.
Sorry. There we go. So why we chose videos is because they're short. They can be short. You can watch as much or as little as you want. They're easily accessible. You can share them on many platforms, and you can see real life examples of how to put these in practice and how to be more intentional with what you're doing. The videos that we showed you today are just short snippets of longer pieces, if you couldn't tell. And what we're going to do with the videos is they're currently posted on a YouTube channel, but we are working with the State Library of Ohio and the Youth Services Coordinator through the State Library to post the video links on the Ohio Ready to Read website, which is a website that's accessible to anybody and shared out through all the libraries, the public libraries in Ohio. And it has all kinds of information on school readiness, kindergarten readiness, early literacy, and it helps break down the early literacy skills and the 5 practices. So we're going to share it out through the Ready to Read page. And hopefully the task force can share it out through libraries, because one of the reasons we chose libraries, not just because I'm so passionate about them, but we also chose them because they are, or they can be, the center of communities, and you can get so many resources for free through your library, so through your public library. So those are the reasons that we put it on the Ready to Read website. We're also going to share it out, and Tawana's going to share a little bit more information about what we're going to do with the videos and moving beyond just this project. But that was the other reason that we wanted to do videos, because, well, TikTok is super popular right now, and you scroll through Facebook, scroll through Instagram, all the things, and you see videos and you stop. And even if you watch 3 seconds of it, you're getting some kind of information. So I'm going to turn it over to Tawana.
So as Julia was bringing out, we're going to continue to create our little snippets of our YouTube video that outlines each domain of our 5 literacy areas. We're going to continue to share resources and referral with different agencies that work with our ECEs, and then also in our K-12 environment, and then providing professional development. We've currently, some of us already have classes on Okra, but we were talking about too, getting together to be able to educate our providers, because some of them do not have degrees, but if you get proper training at the timely, that time frame, as soon as our children enter into our centers, then they will be more better to teach students while play. And so also partner with community organizations to increase early literacy awareness is very important, getting our communities involved, and also creating pamphlets and QR codes for parents that gives them easy steps, intentional things. And like we said, they may already be doing, but be intentional about it for those 5 practices of early literacy.
Any questions or comments?
If you all could drop the links to those YouTube videos in the chat box, I think that would be really helpful. And just thank you for creating these videos. And I agree with Candace in the chat box. You know, I think it'll be really helpful to a lot of families who may struggle with their own literacy skills, and then hopefully translates to professionals as well who work with kids day in, day out, and different strategies they could deploy.
Quick question. Did you all work on also the concept of multiple literacies, especially thinking about our culturally and linguistic diverse students and families, and how we can make sure their identities are affirmed in what they read, and also how they choose to articulate and take in language and literature?
We did not necessarily focus on multiple, what you're speaking of, but something that we talk about and something that's accessible to people through the 5 practices in the Every Child Ready to Read program is the idea that people speak multiple languages, people come from different cultures, and we want to promote whatever's most comfortable for the families. So you know, not necessarily focusing on maybe the words in the books, but also focusing on the pictures and things like that too. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for you know, sharing this presentation and for your work on this. Like I said, I think this is a very important issue that a lot of people really don't recognize in the state. So just bringing, you know, awareness to early literacy and how important it is to build literacy skills for young children, and, you know, teaching them how to properly build those skills is extremely important. All right, now last but not least, our quality childcare group, and I'll go ahead and share the slide on my screen here. But let me switch over windows.
Welcome and thank you for joining us and participating in this celebration and graduation. I've been very excited, and I can speak for all of those in my group. Seeing all the work that everybody has done, I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you all for everything you've done. Our group has worked very hard on understanding and creating a full picture of what quality childcare is. We've heard about infant mental health, literacy, equity. And so we really wanted to pick apart what quality looks like and what it actually means to those participating. So our project has focused on that, and we wanted to provide real testimonies from those in the field, parents, state representatives, directors. We wanted to get a full picture of what it looks like to each of those involved in this industry. I will do a quick round robin to introduce those fellows who've been part of my group.
Hi, I'm Jenny Hoover. I'm the director at Kendall at Oberlin in their Early Learning Center.
Hi, I'm Jessica Boyner, and I am a child care provider in Cleveland.
Good morning, I'm Erica Weary. I'm the former Child Development Director of the Northwestern Ohio Community Action Commission and Early Head Start.
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's okay, Clarissa, go ahead.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was looking for Clarissa. I know she was on here, but she was having issues with her power. And so I am sufficiently worried that she may have lost power. So
I'll continue with my introduction then, and hopefully she'll be able to jump back on. If she's not able to jump back on, I will do my best to present her slides just to make sure that her area is covered. I know she was very excited to present, so hopefully she gets power back. My name is Amanda Urig, and I am the Education and Step Up to Quality State Licensing Director for Brightside Academy, Ohio. So we wanted to begin with what makes a quality childcare? What does it look like? Where do we begin? And how do you measure it? Oh, I think you skipped Pat, there you go. Go ahead.
Sorry, it looks like there's a timing feature on this. So
yeah.
Let's see.
Maybe you can pause it. Okay.
Hold on one second.
Okay, thanks.
No, it's all good. Let me see if I can edit it.
I can probably pull up mine if that makes it better.
It might. But it looks like there's like some short like transition thing that's jumping straight ahead.
Okay, I will try to share my screen. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Yeah, you're right, there is a timer. Am I able to share my screen?
Yes, go ahead. I was
Okay.
going to try to see if I could get ahead of you and take them off, but I am not figuring it out.
Okay, I will go ahead and start. Okay. So what makes a quality childcare? Where do we begin? What does it look like? And how do you measure it? Clarissa was very excited to present this.
I'm back, Amanda.
Great, now you can take over.
I'm back. The power went out, but now it's back on. So, okay. So currently, most people view children as incapable. We do not allow them to take risk. We think they are empty vessels and that it's our job to fill them with knowledge. We believe they are too little to accomplish big tasks, and we are afraid to let them try new things on their own. We believe children shouldn't get messy or dirty, and we give them facts to memorize instead of letting them explore and discover on their own. We believe they are only able to utilize plastic materials instead of real world materials. We need to change the view of the child. This is where we begin. We need to change our mindset and see children as capable, curious, powerful, competent, ambitious, full of potential protagonists. When you judge a child, you tell him who you think he should be. His perceptions of life become separated into categories of good and bad. And his perceptions of himself do too. Children should be viewed as active constructors of knowledge. The educator's primary role is to empower and support children as they explore and investigate. A successful practice should aim at the establishment of a social group where children learn to respect each other, but also learn to express themselves and define their identities. Classroom settings that offer opportunities for meaningful parent involvement, learning materials and teaching styles that are age appropriate and respectful of children's cultural and ethnic heritage have a much bigger impact and provide quality care. While often overlooked by policymakers, the research is clear that the school learning environment significantly and positively impacts students' educational and life outcomes. A high-quality learning environment would be safe physically and psychologically. You should see high levels of trust and collaboration, solid understanding of the effects of poverty, positive school, family, home, and community relationships, needs-based approaches for all students, engaging and relevant curriculum, student voice and engagement, and effective transitions. Teachers who intentionally create a culture of trust, cooperation, and mutual respect by supporting youth voice and creating opportunities for meaningful engagement in the classroom build a strong community. This creates a school climate that encourages dialogue, honesty, and discussion, and helps students to feel connected, supported, and engaged with the material in a way that initiates deeper learning and creates connection to the content.
Quality to parents is defined as parents want quality, and they want the idea that they can know that their child is safe and is in a loving environment and also a learning environment while they're at work. Safe is defined as there's adequate space in the classroom for everyone to move and play safely, and there are COVID-19 procedures in place to keep them safe as well. Loving is defined as there's evidence that the teachers truly love the children in the classroom and enjoy being with them. Teachers are attentive to the children's needs, and they're actively engaging with them during the day. Teachers handle situations in the classroom with respect, love, and positive intent. And parents and teachers work together with no judgment. Learning environment is defined as the teachers make lesson plans according to the interests of the children in the classroom. The classroom environment is also all-inclusive to those in attendance, and the staff and families communicate about what the child is learning, enjoying, or struggling with during the day while they're at school. This is a video from one of our parents defining what she looks for when she's looking for quality for her 4 children.
You need to share your sound.
Sorry, just
No,
did
it's
that.
all good.
Think of what a quality daycare or preschool center looks like. I'm thinking of thoroughness and safety, loving and caring environment, and also the learning environment. I think it's important that my children have a voice and that the teachers are educated in how to problem solve and give the children emotional regulation. I also think of the play space, making sure that there's enough space in the classroom and outdoors for them to play. I think of the sanitation and cleaning procedures and COVID precautions that are in place. Those are very important to me. That there's communication with the teachers and the staff to the parents, and that's consistent. That the topics in the classroom are a wide variety of things taught, that it's open and inclusive to all races and gender types, and just an all-inclusive environment for children and their families. I think of the love and care that the teachers give to the child so that I can feel comfort and safe leaving my children in their care when I'm not there. And I think that these are all very important things in a nutshell. I'm pretty sure I could think of a lot more, but those are the first things that come to mind. Thank you.
So one thing we've heard echoed over and over today in many of the presentations is staff, our concerns for staff. So when asking staff what quality means to them, the most often responses have been they want to feel respected, they want to feel valued, they want to be seen as professionals like their peers in other educational situations. They want to have a positive work culture. They want clear expectations. They want defined policies and procedures. They want resources, parent engagement. They want that in their classrooms. Community involvement. They want to be known and seen in the community. They want to be involved in management decisions, and they need to have access to technology so we can relate to families on many different levels. Additionally, through COVID and through many other things, work-life balance has become more and more needed. And when we think of mental health for our staff as well, this is a part of it. They also need affordable childcare for their own children. It's hard to care for others when they're worried about their own children. Financial education assistance. Obviously, in the education world, you get jobs based on your education. However, knowing what our teachers make, they need assistance, and they need assistance that won't put them further into debt. They need mentors. They need people that have done the work before to help guide them and answer the questions without judgment. Reasonable expectations to get the job done in the amount of time that they have to do the job. Consistent staff. We've talked about workforce issues this year. Consistent staff so they can partner and grow from each other, because just like children that learn peer-to-peer, so do teachers. Teachers learn peer-to-peer as well. And then reduce paperwork. Obviously, the redundancies in what we have to, the list that we have to check off. It's time consuming, and it takes away from face-to-face time with the children that we serve. Recognition. So obviously they need to be recognized for what they do, and not just a good empty pat on the back, like good job. Be specific about how they're being recognized and what they're doing well. Professional development opportunities, not just things that are assigned by licensing, things that interest them, that spark them. Livable wage. We've heard that over and over again in regards to we have to pay our staff a livable wage, so that way they're able to do all of the things that they want to do and not worry about their own family. Safe and healthy working conditions. Just as we talk about safe and healthy environments for children, we need those same things in place for the adults. Adequate staff. Again, in a perfect world, when we had staffing and didn't have a staffing shortage, we would still have those extra people to help with those things that happen. When you're caring for children, it's not you're at a machine and you're just going through the motions. They're people, they have needs that are flexible and at sometimes immediate needs, and we need extra people to do that safely. Flexible schedules. A lot of times people are working 6 to 6 and things like that, where they also have to take care of their own needs, get to the doctor, get their kids to the doctor. And of course, low ratios. Low ratios are set by the state, but we also know that it's very difficult to give individual attention to children, even at current ratios.
So we got this video footage from Leanne Easterling. She's the director of a child care center in Columbus, Ohio.
Hi, my name is Leanne Easterling. I'm the director of a child care center in Columbus, Ohio, and I've been in the field of early education for over 28 years. When asked what quality early childhood education looks like to me, I believe there should be educated staff who are extremely knowledgeable in child development, staff who are treated as professionals, both by the director of their school and the parents who have children in attendance. Lower child-teacher ratios that allow staff to give individual time to children as they maintain and manage the classroom at the same time. Teams of teachers who work together on all aspects of planning and care for the children and as they care for the environment. They need to feel that they are in it together, that they are equals, and that they are both working towards a common goal. Enough support for the director that allows her then to properly support the staff. I believe quality is child-centered learning, child-free choice time, learning through play, a healthy list of substitute teachers, and so many more things going to quality education. Believe that the meaning of quality education has changed. All the things I already mentioned go into quality. There were some necessary changes that we had to make, lower class sizes, things like that because of the pandemic, but it didn't have to impact quality. And in fact, we realized that some of our children who maybe had a harder time in the classroom during the day actually thrived with lower numbers. So that's only evidence that class sizes matter. Smaller.
So I wanted to cut that video short only to save on time, but we wanted to capture her feedback on how COVID impacted the quality in the center. So sorry for that.
Quality in other countries. In other countries, early childhood education looks a little bit different. And on the next slide, we point out a few things that we thought were important. Finland, Sweden, and Norway are the top 3 countries ranking in quality early childhood education. And this is because they have done long-term investments and prioritization of early childhood development, which is now deeply embedded in society. Ages 3 and 4 in such countries as Britain, France, Israel, Belgium, and Iceland are enrolled in formal education according to the data from the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. In Europe, new parents have paid leave for 14 months on average, and it's common for children to start school at age 3. And it looks different too than what we see. In preschool years, the focus is on play and toddlers aren't sitting at desks doing worksheets.
So I wanted to provide some data on how we compare to the rest of the world. To put it plainly, the United States is getting beat when it comes to preschool. On almost every element, the United States ranks behind most of the other countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD. We rank 28th in preschool participation for 4-year-olds, 24th in preschool participation for 3-year-olds, 22nd in typical age that children begin early childhood education programs, 15th in teacher-to-child ratio in early childhood education programs, and 21st in total investment in early childhood education relative to country wealth. These rankings do not benefit the United States. Given the importance of early childhood education to future student success, the United States must take these rankings seriously. We need to do better. High quality preschool is critically important for building a globally competitive workforce, yet our numbers are not impressive. We lag behind other countries in access, quality, and investment. We are getting beat by top performing countries whose commitment to preschool helps propel them forward, as well as by countries we usually do not expect to see ahead of us in rankings. Meanwhile, China and India are racing ahead to improve their student achievement and are making the necessary commitments to do so. The United States has a lot to do to catch up to the rest of the world on early childhood education. Increased investments in high quality preschool education for all children, regardless of income, will put us more in line with the rest of the world, help keep us on track with China and India, and ensure school readiness for our most at-risk children. We got this information from Juliana Herman, is a policy analyst with Education Policy Team at the Center for American Progress.
So now we're going to get into in-home childcare providers. And on the next slide, you'll see the next slide.
Sorry.
Many families choose family childcare homes because they like the family environment and the smaller number of children. Home-based programs provide a consistent caregiver for your child, and many offer flexible hours if you need care in the evening or weekends. Families with multiple children also like the siblings are cared for together rather than separated into different age groups. Family child care homes are often less expensive than center-based child care programs. There are 2,790 in-home child care providers in Ohio. The benefits of parents placing their child in an in-home setting includes child turnover is low, parents and providers can work together, infant care feels right at home, and in-home providers are often close and convenient, and child provider ratios are small. Although in-home providers are held to the same quality and rules as centers, their pay is much lower than center-based care. While all daycares need help, we need to keep in mind that in-home settings are facing the same uphill battle, if not more than center-based. Now you will hear from an in-home child care provider and her perspective on early childhood education.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Hill, and I'm an in-home daycare provider. With early childhood means to me, help kids grow and learn and give them the ability to be whatever they want to be. And by doing that, we need more funding from the state so that we can perform like the outside and we can get the uplift the community and many children.
Now, this is State Representative Stephanie House from the 11th District, and this is her perspective on where Ohio is right now with early childhood education and where it needs to be going.
And when I think about the state of early childhood education here in Ohio, I know we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of our statistics have told us they are not here by the time they are entering kindergarten or K-12 system. So it really is our responsibility as a state to make those investments in early childhood education. What does that look like? Making sure that it's accessible and affordable for families who have 3 and 4-year-olds to high quality early childhood education programs so that we can turn the tide on making sure on day one when our babies are in kindergarten that they're ready. When I look at the work that I've been doing consistently as I enter the Ohio House of Representatives, I've been working specifically on increasing investment in affordability and access to early childhood education. And I'm proud to say that we work in partnership with the governor and other members of the General Assembly. Slowly but surely, we've been increasing access. And as a legislator, many times we are having those conversations just about the resources and the availability. And so I'm proud that I've been able to be a voice to increase access to early childhood education and hope that others will find value in it.
To sum everything up, quality childcare is sustainable, passionate staff, better pay, professional development, flexible parent partnerships, love, education, families, resources, special needs, provided support, safe environments, and communication. These are the ingredients for quality childcare.
All right. Thank you all for sharing this presentation. And I know we're super behind on time. So I ask you all to put your information in the chat box, and anyone who has questions can reach out to you all after today's graduation ceremony. But I thank you for bringing this to the attention of everyone in this group, because as you may know, quality is at the forefront of a lot of discussions that are happening right now in our state and across the nation. So it's definitely an important topic to discuss, and making sure that we support providers and children in not only providing quality childcare, but also receiving quality childcare. So with that, I'm going to get into my next point, and then I promise I will try to keep you all on here as little as possible, because I know we're over time, but let me go ahead and get started on this. So as many of you know, Congress right now is in the middle of a lot of really important discussions. And while I would have loved for these two members to be here virtually with us live, unfortunately, that was not able to happen as they are, really fielding a lot of important issues in Congress right now. But they were very open to providing some video remarks for you all, and we've uploaded them to YouTube, and we'll be able to share the link so that you all have a copy of this moving forward. And then you should have received in the mail a certificate, not only from Groundwork, congratulating you, but also a certificate from Senator Sherrod Brown as well. His office thought that you all deserve to be recognized in that way. And it was really cool. And I just want to say that if you have a chance, be sure to reach out and send a thank you to both members of Congress. So a little bit of background before I pop into this video. Senator Sherrod Brown is a lifelong Ohioan. He spent his career really focusing on the dignity of work. So the idea that hard work should pay off for everyone, no matter who you are, where you live, or what kind of work you do. He's been very active in the community and has held many roundtables across Ohio to hear directly from constituents on what they believe Washington should be doing and moving forward. He is currently the chairman of the Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. He also serves on the Finance Committee, the Agricultural Committee, and is the longest serving Ohioan on the Veterans Affairs Committee. Senator Brown was born and raised in Mansfield, Ohio, where he earned his Eagle Scout Award and spent summers working on his family's farm. He's married to author and Pulitzer Prize winning columnist Connie Schultz. They live in Cleveland, Ohio with their rescue dogs, drives Jeeps made by union workers in Toledo, and have 3 daughters, a son, a daughter-in-law, and 3 sons-in-laws and 8 grandchildren. So he has a rather large family, and early childhood is really important to him, not only because of his family, but also because what he's hearing across Ohio. So let me go ahead and get started.
Hi, folks. I'm Sherrod Brown. It's a privilege to serve you in the United States Senate. First of all, congratulations. Congratulations to all the Groundwork Ohio Fellows for completing this year's Leadership Fellowship. Thanks for your commitment and your public service, your commitment to young children and to families. It is so important. Whether you work in childcare or Head Start or child welfare or preschool or childhood mental health, your work is critical to ensuring that every child in Ohio has the opportunity to reach her full potential. As you move on from this program, think about the issues facing all of us, facing your community. Think about how you can help. And that's why you're doing this, I understand. So thank you again to Groundwork Ohio for all you do to champion high quality learning, early childhood development, for providing so many early childhood professionals with the support and the training that they all need. We know how hard this pandemic's been, how it's made the challenges children and families were already facing even more difficult. That's why your advocacy on early childhood issues is more important than ever. You're fighting for children who don't have a super PAC, who don't have high-priced lobbyists looking out for them. Fortunately, we now have an administration and a U.S. Senate that's on your side. In March, we passed the American Rescue Plan. It included a bill I've been working on for 8 years, the child tax credit, the largest tax cut for working families ever passed. 90% of Ohio's families with children will get at least a $3,000 check from the federal government, $250 or $300 every month. It included funding for families in need, children in foster care, education, caregivers. Everything we're doing now with the Build Back Better agenda is about making sure that hard work pays off. It's about raising wages. It's about bringing down costs for families so that they can keep up with the extra expenses that come with raising children. Housing, childcare, healthcare are 3 of the biggest items in any family's budget. Build Back Better tackles all 3 of them. This bill we would finally invest in our childcare workforce. Workers in childcare are grossly underpaid, as you know, for their work. We must ensure that quality childcare and preschool are affordable for families who need it, and I'll keep fighting to make sure this gets passed. On all of these issues, I ask you, keep speaking out. You know your communities, you know what our children need to reach their full potential. Use the skills you've learned from this fellowship to engage with your elected officials. Your advocacy, your voices, your stories matter so much to those who represent you. Share those stories with people in government. Share those stories at every level, from your U.S. senators, Senator Portman and me, all the way to county commissioners, town councils, school board members. Every year in usually March or April, I ask 6 of my Senate colleagues, 3 of each party, to join me on the Senate floor to read the 1963 letter that Dr. King wrote from the Birmingham jail. And he was writing a letter to the moderate ministers of that part of Alabama. They had said, Dr. King, we're for voting rights, we're for civil rights, but slow down, you're going too fast. He was having none of that. So on scraps of paper, he wrote this letter from a Birmingham jail and smuggled it out. And it's worth, I assume every one of you has read it in high school and after high school sometime, but I urge you to read it again. And I always save the one line I like especially in the letter for myself to read on the Senate floor as we all read from this letter from Birmingham jail. And it goes, progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. I'll say it again, progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. As we know, as Dr. King knew so well, progress rolls in because of Ohioans like you who dedicate your lives to making that progress in our communities. Thank you, happy holiday. Thank you for service to your fellow men and women in the great traditions that are so important to your faith, to your community, to your country. Thanks so much.
And next we will hear from Congressman Anthony Gonzalez. So Congressman Gonzalez represents Ohio's 16th district in Northeast Ohio in the U.S. House of Representatives. Congressman Gonzalez serves on the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, is co-chair of the China Task Force, and serves on the Financial Services Committee, where he is the vice chair of the Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion. Congressman Gonzalez was born and raised in Northeast Ohio. He is a graduate of The Ohio State University, where he played wide receiver on the OSU football team before joining the Indy Colts for 5 seasons. After his football career, Congressman Gonzalez attended Stanford Business School and launched a career in the technology industry before returning home to Northeast Ohio. Currently, Congressman Gonzalez and his wife reside in Rocky River with their 2 young children, Alexander and Carolyn. So let me get to his video.
Hello, I'm Congressman Anthony Gonzalez. I represent Ohio's 16th Congressional District, and I want to thank you for giving me the honor of addressing you briefly on this important graduation day. Long before I am a member of Congress, I am a father and a husband. I consider these to be the 2 most important callings in my life, and I think about them constantly. Over the past couple years during COVID, it's been challenging for parents. It's been challenging for parents to find places to educate their kids, to keep them safe, and to make sure that their children are developing along the path that is best for them. It's probably been our biggest challenge as a family, if I'm being honest. And the truth is, we look to people like yourselves to help us guide our children and to help nurture our children. I was visiting with a mentor of mine not long ago, and he put it to me this way. He said, Anthony, what are you doing to make sure your children know that they are loved and adored? Loved and adored. Adoration is a very interesting word and not one that we use very often, but it's so critical in a child's life. And as parents, not only do we need to do that at home, but we need to feel comfortable sending our kids out into the world, into places, into school environments where they will get similar nurturing and similar affection. I'm confident that everybody today who's graduating loves and adores the children that they are so willingly or so honored to educate and to mentor as they grow. And it gives me great hope for the state of Ohio, but also for our country, to know that there are so many wonderful people who are willing to commit their entire careers to making sure that our children have all that they need to be successful. There's nothing more important than building the next generation of business leaders, politicians, teachers, whatever it is, whatever your lot in life is, we need that next generation to come forward and to take those positions. And it's because of people like you that dads and moms across the state can go to bed and feel confident that their kids are going to be taken care of. And so on behalf of myself, my wife, Ohio 16th District and the state, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for all that you do. I want to wish you the best of luck in all that you do going forward. And I hope you know that, at least in the halls of Congress and in this office, you will always have my unwavering support and gratitude. Thank you and God bless.
All right, sorry, I had to do it. But congratulations to you all for all that you've achieved over the past year. I have been so fortunate to get to know every one of you. I feel like while we were helping you grow in your leadership and advocacy, you certainly helped Groundwork as well, grow in our own leadership and advocacy and understanding, what you all do in the communities and just how important you all are to moving our future forward. I am going to be sad to not be around you all the time, but I hope that you engage in the alumni network, and I hope you all continue to stay active in all the different advocacy, communication, just really anything that touches the lives of children and trying to move this needle forward. So I hope that you all continue on this journey with us, and I hope that you bring others along with you as well. What I know many of you have throughout this process, and I think that oftentimes, like Lynn said earlier, we're at the State House and we're talking to legislators. But oftentimes these legislators don't hear from the voices that really matter. So those on the ground like yourself, and also the families that you work with day in and day out. So there will be plenty of opportunities in the next year to continue to build that leadership and advocacy skills that you all have been leaning into over the past year. And I hope that you bring others along in this journey as well. But like I said, I'm going to be extremely sad to not see your faces on a daily basis, but I am so incredibly proud of you all. We had hard conversations, we had honest conversations, and I just really appreciate you all taking the time and really being vulnerable and going through this with us all. So I thank you all, I congratulate you all. And I look forward to seeing you all hopefully one day in the State House, in Congress, wherever you land. I'm sure you're going to do incredible things. So I just thank you all so much for this time. And if anyone on my team is still on and wants to say anything, you're more than welcome to. But I wanted to be sure to also call out on the screen that these are incredible fellows who have just so many experiences and expertise and knowledge that is so invaluable to us at Groundwork.
So Julia, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, sorry. Hi guys, this is Melissa Bacon, and I am the Director of Policy and Advocacy at Groundwork, Ohio. And I've had the pleasure to follow the work that Julia and Kelsey has led over the last 9 months and interact with many of you through this work. I want to congratulate all of you. Growing and developing policy advocacy skills is such a talent, and it is also so needed down at the State House. People need to hear and they need to know how to advocate for the issues that they truly care about. So I thank you all for participating. This is an enormous time commitment for everyone, but you did a great job, and Kelsey and Julia did wonderful leadership. So thanks. Bye.
Thank you all. You know me, I will probably start tearing up. So thank you just for being just the greatest and who you are. And, you know, I also know that there are many fellows for next year that are on the line too. So we're looking forward to engaging with you all as well. And hopefully crossing paths here soon with the current fellowship and the previous cohort. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know we went over time significantly, but I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And like I said, I'll be sure to follow up with all this information so it's at the top of your inbox on Monday morning. But feel free to, you know, reach out to each other and reach out to us as you continue to go forward in this leadership and advocacy. Thank you.
Congratulations. Love you, Miss Angela.
Thank you, Ty. Congratulations, team. So proud. It was an honor. I'm trying not to tear up. You guys are the best. God, you have been wonderful. You have been amazing. You're just leaders, and I learned so much from you guys as a team. You're fire. You're godly. It's just been wonderful. So thank you. Let's stay connected. Let's stay teaching and learning from each other. Let's just stay together, okay? I love you guys. It's been a great year with you guys. Thanks for the encouragement.
Congratulations, everybody. We did it.
Congratulations, Angela. And everyone else, congratulations.
Congrats. Happy holidays, everyone. Have a great Saturday.
Woo,
I'll leave this on as people start logging off, and I'll be sure to keep this up in case anyone wants to say.
Bye, Julia.
Congratulations, Angela. So very proud of you as always. You never cease to amaze me. Bravo, everyone. Great job. Job well done. Keep rising.
Keep rising. I love it.
Congratulations, everybody. I hope everybody's holiday festivities goes well. And I look forward to working with many of you in the future, and have a good day.
Congratulations to everyone. And I just want to say everyone at Groundwork Ohio, thank you. This has been an awesome experience. It's been a life changer and a real game changer. So just thank you so much. And I hope we continue to cross paths.
Congratulations, Brittany Randall Pope. Looking for great things from you.
All right. Thank you all, and take care.
Thanks,
Have a happy
Julia.
holiday and keep in touch.
Thanks, Julia and Kelsey. Be well. Take
Thanks,
care.
you too. Bye.
Bye.